I have had the exact same reoccurring nightmare since I was 3. I wake up in my bed because something is tapping on the window. We were on the second story, above the giant hill next to the empty Erie Water Towers on Coleraine Avenue, so the 2 stories was more like 3. There were no trees or branches that could have been tapping it. That side of the house had no trees. I sat up in bed and looked over. My sister was already sitting up staring straight at the window. I remember asking her what it was. She had no idea. We sat there whispering for a little bit, terrified, because whatever this was definitely trying to get our attention. I get up and go to the window. She tries to stop me, but gets up with me. As we are standing there, to the bottom right corner, it looked like something was there, but it was making itself invisible. You could almost see an outline of this thing, with like a little bean-shaped head, probably 3 foot tall. The tapping is still happening, and just as it felt like it was about to show itself, the brightest light I have ever seen began shining through the window behind us to the left where my brothers were sleeping. They both sat straight up and started screaming. Then we started screaming. My dad and mom came running into the room and made us run to the bedroom across the hall. We ducked down next to the bed, all of us panting, trying to be quiet, but within 20 to 30 seconds, the light began shining through the window in that room. We all started screaming again, and our dad made us run downstairs. We were running from room to room, hiding from this giant spotlight. When this light hit the room, there were no shadows anywhere the light touched. That's how bright this thing was. We eventually ended up in this giant room of the house that reminded me of an old ballroom. I'm not sure if that's what it was or not, but it was bigger than the giant living room and dining room together and had a tile floor. We kept that room completely empty. It gave off bad vibes. We hid in there for maybe less than 1 minute before my dad made the decision. We were going to make a run for it. It was no longer safe in the house. It had one door that led outside, and I remember being so scared because someone had broken the window on the door before and there was broken glass on the patio. I asked about it. They said don't worry about it, but I was like, we're barefoot, in pajamas in the middle of the night, what is even happening? My dad counted down from 3, opened the door, and we all silently made a run for it down the hill. I remember how it was chilly yet warm, probably spring summertime. I remember the cold wet grass on my feet as I ran. I was crying because I couldn't keep up, and every time I cried my dad would pick me up. I began crying and he stopped me, came down to my 3-year-old level, grabbed my shoulders and whispered sternly, "Sam, I cannot carry you. You are slowing me down. You have to be quiet or they will find us." I was about to cry. I'm like, who TF are they? He picked me up one last time and I looked back at the house over his shoulder. It was a crystal clear night. You could see every star, but there was this huge storm cloud above the house and only above the house in a circular shape, with the spotlight coming from it frantically searching from window to window trying to find us. He puts me down again and we run. The rest of my family is at the bottom of the hill already, but we catch up and he tells us to go into the woods on our right. There was a fitness trail that led to the apartments behind the house. I looked up when we got to the stairs. My dad tells us to split up. My oldest brother and sister ran to the left, my middle brother and my mom ran to the right, my dad and I went straight. We're trying to be as quiet as possible, but I was so scared that just trying to catch my breath would make them hear us. We're all standing in the woods, barefoot, in pajamas, hiding from some light, when it starts to come toward us. I remember closing my eyes and being like, please don't find us, please don't find us, but when I opened them, the light was already making its way to the woods where we were hiding. I was like, oh my god, they're gonna find us. So in my tiny brain, I was like, maybe it's better if they just find us anyway. I stepped away from the tree and screamed. My siblings from each side started yelling at me to shut up. My dad came over to grab me and the light started shining on us. My entire family ran over and my dad hugged us all as the light got brighter and everything went white. Then I wake up. This dream happened over and over for years, until I was 18. Eventually the dream would change and the light would be replaced with whatever I was scared of at the time. T-Rex from Jurassic Park, Beetlejuice as the snake, and if they looked through the window and saw you, you were caught. I remember a random day we woke up and my brother and I had the same scar on our arm, exact same spot, length and size. We giggled because we both had a little patch of nothing on our arms that matched that popped up overnight. We had no memory of where this came from. Got to looking, Every single one of us have it. Mom, Dad, 2 girls, 2 boys. Same spot, no memory of how we got it. It caused all kinds of problems. I was terrified of running for years. In elementary school, we would have to run laps for gym class, and every single time we had to, I would just break down and start crying because I couldn't keep up. I was terrified of my gym teacher because he would laugh at me and be like, "Well, Sam is crying again. Go sit on the wall." That's where they threw people that didn't have gym shoes, so I eventually purposely began wearing the wrong shoes. I'd have panic attacks if he tried to make me run. Fast forward to about 25 years old. My dad, sister, and I are sitting at the table eating dinner at our family farm. We were talking about all the paranormal things that happened in that house. It was one of the major stops on the Underground Railroad. Everyone got murdered in the house for hiding slaves. When I brought up the dream I kept having, I started with, "I know it's just a dream, but the entire time we lived in that house I had this reoccurring nightmare that I woke up in the middle of the night." My sister cut me off.
"And something was tapping on the window?"
I was shocked. She continued,
"Something was tapping on the window and woke us up, but it was like making itself invisible."
We went back and forth finishing each other's sentences. She mentioned Dad making us run outside in the middle of the night, and she even told me,
"Chris and I went left, Mom and Nick went right, and you and Dad ran straight."
We looked over at my dad and he was frozen. His face was white as a ghost. I asked him if he remembered it too, and he slowly put his fork down and said, "Something like that." Every single one of us remembered it, and it made so much sense. My siblings started being really mean to me after that experience, straight up hateful, and they said it's because all I did was cry, but it's because I got us caught. I have other memories from after that. It was weird. We woke up in this place that looked like a hospital. All white floors and walls. Whoever we were with separated us from our parents and took us to this room with glass windows. They stood outside and just watched us in silence and didn't say a word. The room was filled with other kids. They were silent. All of them had bleach blonde hair and blue eyes, but no other facial hair, like no eyebrows or eyelashes. Everything just seemed off about them. After standing there in silence watching these kids silently play with toys, it clicked. I was like, oh, they just want us to play with them. I ran over to a little girl and said, "Hi." My sister yelled at me and tried to stop me, but I was like, "Nah man, this is cool as hell." We got woken up to play with toys and other kids. Their toys were weird. There was like a bouncy ball, a fire truck, other random kids' toys. But then there were other things I had never seen. They were just like shapes with weird colors, but when you touched them, they made you feel a certain feeling. Like straight up voodoo magic, they made you feel an emotion. They weirded me out, lol. Everyone else eventually kinda gave in and interacted with the kids, but they were so on edge and I didn't understand why, because I was 3. They were using us to teach them how to act like children. They didn't understand laughter or why we did it. They couldn't laugh. That's all I remember, is that they didn't understand how or why we would laugh, or why playing made us laugh. I started reading a book I got off of Amazon called The Threat. I went in just thinking it was BS. It took me 6 months to even finish because it was just so boring and seemed too far out there. But there are sections in the book that brought me back, like it mentioned people being in rooms with kids, playing with toys. It mentioned the weird ones that you touched and made you feel feelings. It mentioned a lot of things I remember and kept to myself. It even mentioned things I'm not willing to talk about. And this book is basically people being put under hypnosis and the notes this doctor took of them remembering what happened to them.